Hi, I'm Claire, founder of Creativity Found, a community for creative learners and educators, connecting adults who want to find a creative outlet with the artists and crafters who can help them do so, with workshops, courses, online events and kits. For this podcast, I chat with people who have found or refound their creativity as adults. We'll explore their childhood experiences of the arts, discuss how they came to the artistic practices they now love, and consider the barriers they may have experienced between the two. We'll also explore what it is that people value and gain from their newfound artistic pursuits, and how their creative lives enrich their practical, necessary, everyday lives. I have invited some podcast shows that I admire and think you might like to make guest appearances on the Creativity Found podcast feed. I have chosen an episode from each show that communicates something of the Creativity Found ethos. Please enjoy, and I hope you're inspired to listen to more episodes by today's guest podcaster.
You're listening to the Mother of All Solutions podcast, conversations about careers and caring for today's parents.
I mean, definitely a top tip for anyone that wants to learn to sew. I would just look up tutorials of things that I wanted to make, and there is probably some content out there that is very beginner friendly. And I just had to go with it. It was trial and error. I was having fun. I think for the first time in many, many years, I was learning a skill and not being examined on it.
So welcome listeners to Mother of All Solutions for the new term. I hope everyone has survived the summer holidays. I know I'm quite pleased that this week is now underway, and life might get into a bit more of a routine. I'm also super excited that today, being the first episode of Mother of All Solutions since the summer break, I've got two amazing guests. I've got Tedstone and Vicki Reid from the Great British Sewing Bee, but also women and mothers in their own right, which we're going to discover about in this episode today. So welcome to Lauren and welcome to Vicki. Hi, ladies.
Hi.
Hello.
Lovely to meet you.
And we're on an online recording. We're not together, which is a shame. But just for listeners, do you want to explain where you are and what you've been up to today? Lauren, you go first. Yeah.
So I'm Tedstone. I am the quarterfinalist from this year's Great British Sewing Bee. And as well as all things sewing, I'm also a mother of two living in the Midlands. I'm originally from London and now based in the Midlands. So
Amazing.
This summer has consisted of trips down to London to see my family, and also a trip to Hastings as well with my kids, and lots of other activities in between. Working and also sewing.
And what about today? What's your day been like today then?
So today has been a mix of sorting out like life admin. The kids are back to school this week, so it's all things go for school, pack lunches, lunch money, making sure uniform is the right size, as well as panic sewing lots of labels into clothing.
Oh yeah, we need to get your top tips, ladies, on school uniform sewing.
Don't leave it till September.
Okay, well, it's going to be too late for that. Yeah. Oh, well, it's lovely to get that intro from you, Lauren, and find out about your day today as well. And what about you, Vicki? Tell us a little bit about yourself and what you've been up to.
So my name's Vicki. I've got two kids as well. I've got Iris, who's 5, and Ezra, who's 3. I live in Lincolnshire. I was the semi-finalist for this year's Sewing Bee, which is how I met Lauren. And I mean, my summer's been very much the same, juggling work, children, life admin. You know what it's like.
Yeah, a bit mental. Well, thank you both so much for coming on today. And as you said, you both reached such a good stage in the series, right? Quarterfinal, semi-final as well. I mean, amazing. So well done to you both. You must feel super proud. Or are you a bit embarrassed to talk about it now? How does it?
It's definitely a mix of sheer pride and then also the fear that maybe not fear, but you don't know who's watched it. So you can't
lots of people.
introduce in my head it was just me, my husband, and the TV, but you can't introduce yourself as, hi, my name is Lauren from Sewing Bee, because that is just so awkward if people don't watch Sewing Bee and they've never even heard of it. So although, like every day we are filled with pride of how far we have come and how much we've achieved, you also have to stay very modest. And ultimately, like, we're just two mummies that happen to be on TV and met on the TV.
I was gonna say, I don't know about you, but I feel very much the same as I always have done. Obviously really proud, and it was a great experience, but I think, I don't know about you, Lauren, but it was a secret for such a long time. You, one, sort of forget that it's out in the open now, and two, it sort of feels bizarrely surreal, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does.
Because your timeline's slightly different to the viewer's timeline of it all. Yeah,
of course. I feel as the timeline is so different. Yeah, there are moments where you did have to stay quite quiet about a lot of things, so it did feel like a secret, didn't it, Vicki?
And everyone's feelings are in a different place, because our excitement and anxiousness and everything like that was a year ago, and people are watching it with I'm so nervous to see how you get on tonight, and I'm like, well, I feel fine about it.
I've done it. Like, it's been
I've done it.
I'm over that now.
And it felt weird, like, even we did get so far in the competition, and we were both so proud of how far we got. And even when we did leave, it was people's reactions of, like, sympathy. And I was like, wait, why are you giving me sympathy? I don't need sympathy. I'm just so proud.
I smashed it.
I did really well, because we already had that kind of grieving process of where we had come in the competition already between us. Like, the 12 of us as a collective have been such a support for each other within that process that it actually felt like, when it was airing, it was kind of like, oh, now everyone else gets to see that. We've done it already. And so I actually felt I enjoyed every moment of being on there. I enjoyed leaving, as in I enjoyed seeing my progression and seeing how far I got, and that sense of, like,
the journey.
I really enjoyed the journey, every element of the journey. So when people are like, oh, it was so sad you're crying, I'm like, babe, I cry all the time.
That's
what happens when you have kids.
Exactly.
Suddenly you're just an emotional wreck and you don't know why.
But back to Sewing Bee, because that's obviously how I've seen you. And when I approached you, it was much earlier in the competition, so I had no idea how you were going to progress. But obviously I got a little glimpse of your work on the Sewing Bee, but also your personal lives and the fact that you were mothers. So I think, Lauren, your intro reel or whatever they put together very much said that, you changed your career as a kind of worker, parent, and I thought, that's definitely intriguing, and we'll hear more about that. And then Vicki, there was lots of conversation about things you were making for your kids, and I was just like, oh, this is so nice just to kind of hear these personal journeys, or the snippets of your lives behind the Sewing Bee. And then obviously just the next couple of episodes, seeing you as friends as well. Like, I think there's one episode where you, like, go out the studio linked arms, and it was so sweet. I mean, I didn't quite cry, but I did think that was very nice, because of course the relationships are part of the TV experience, aren't they? It's not just what you make, it's what the relationship
definitely.
Is. So how did that come about? How did you two bond in the room, in the sewing room? How did you bond?
It sounds like we're talking about, like, our first ever date and how it was just like we locked eyes and it was just forever.
Maybe it was.
So I would say our probably first moment of realizing that we had just so many things in common were the kids. So I already followed Vicki on Instagram, and as a weirdo that I am, the first thing I ever said to Vicki was, oh my God, hi, I follow you on Instagram. And I play this back in my head all the time. I'm like, who does that? Like, who introduces themselves like that? So I already followed Vicki.
Okay.
And we messaged each other.
I was going to say we had messaged each other because I had seen a make that she had done where she had made a mini version of an outfit for her daughter, which is right up my street because I make loads of little outfits for my daughter as well. So we had messaged before. So when I met her, it already felt like I knew a lot about her, and that there were some things that we definitely could relate to.
Mm.
So I think it was the evening before the first episode. Our rooms were only a short walk away from each other where we were staying, and she knocked on the door and she was like, "Do you want to have a cup of tea?" And I
Oh.
was like, "Yeah, I really want to have a cup of tea." And not only did we connect over the fact we have children, but we're also tea obsessed as well.
Oh my goodness.
And
The
we
match
both
made.
like, yeah, I mean, I don't
drank
know
a lot of tea.
we drank a lot of tea. And I don't know if it was the fact it was the tea or the way that we actually drink our tea, because we're very fussy and we like a very strong cup of tea. So when she made that first cup of tea and it was a strong cup of tea, I thought, this is the girl for me. We can do this. The fact she likes a strong brew as well, this is going to be perfect.
If you're looking to cultivate a life of endless creative possibilities, you're in the right place. Stop Time, Live in the Moment is where mindfulness meets creativity. Meet and learn about the human behind the headlines in my interview series with my extraordinary creative guests from Broadway to Hollywood and beyond. Interested in the art of living in the moment? Start your week off right with Serenity Sunday meditations, and on Thursdays tune in for short episodes packed with coaching tools and inspiration. I'm your host, Lisa Hopkins, and I cannot wait for you to join me on Stop Time, Live in the Moment to discover how to live your best life today.
I think I accosted you in the corridor and then we probably spoke for 4 hours. And then that became a theme every night.
Yeah, Vicki will be like, just knock on the door, and then we'll be talking at the door for at least half an hour, and I'll be like, do you want to just come in? Because I mean, standing in the door is just not working. Like, let's just
So is it like a hotel, one of those rubbish kettles with the really short leads in the hotel? Were you having to...
Luckily, the kettle was amazing.
Good.
These are things that we needed, you know. These are the behind the scenes that people want to know. The kettle was amazing. The tea was brilliant. We had options, but the fact that there was Yorkshire tea was amazing.
Good. Everybody was happy, right?
Everyone was happy. So yeah, that's how we first started talking. And then, although we did have the connection of the children and our love of tea, there was also the very obvious, the fact that we're about to embark on this sewing competition together.
Which must have been so intense, right? As well.
Very intense. And I think one of those over the first few days, that intense relationship wasn't just between Vicki and I, it was genuinely between all of the bees. We all just had that really instant connection. We were all doing something so surreal. We've left behind people that don't know why we've left them behind to do this. So it felt quite nice to just be able to talk about the process up until that point with these 12 people. But yeah, it just happened to be that Vicki and I have very similar children that we had left behind, and it was, I can't remember if it was for you, Vicki, but it was one of the first times I had actually stayed away from my children.
Yeah, same.
So
we both left well, your youngest and my eldest, it was both their first day of school, so we dropped them off in the morning and then left for up to 6 weeks, didn't we?
So so it was as a parent a very hard experience, especially for the age of our children as well.
Yeah.
So my children are still fairly young. I've got a 5 and an 8-year-old. But they are old enough to understand that mummy wasn't there.
Yeah.
But they were also too young for me to tell them everything because, you know, contractually I had to keep secrets. And my children are very honest.
And I can imagine in the playground the gossip would have been going round, right?
Oh,
I mean,
definitely.
This is it. So
neither
that's
of us
hard.
told our kids, did we?
No, we didn't tell the kids.
The rest of the world found out.
Oh my goodness. I hadn't expected this line of conversation in the episode. This is really intriguing. That's like added pressure on top of the pressure of the competition, right? I mean,
definitely. I mean, everyone has personal circumstances that make the competition that little bit harder for them.
Definitely. I agree.
Yeah, it could be family, it could be friends, it could be work dynamic. There could so many things that could make the competition that little bit harder. That is never really portrayed on the TV.
No.
But I think the one thing that we found very difficult was the fact that we had very young children. And it was, I mean, many parents can relate to how tricky it is to just the logistics of childcare,
Yeah.
even if it is just family, or if it is paid for childcare, the logistics of that on top of preparing for being on TV, that it was very draining. You know, we both got two children with two different routines, with two different sets of needs. So in order for me to get onto the show, there were so many obstacles that I had to think about as a parent. In order to get on. I mean, I don't regret it at all. And now that my children know, like, they're obviously very happy. But yeah, there was a lot of sacrifice.
Definitely. I mean, I assumed there was some level, but like obviously all the secrets and all the like kind of backwards and forwards of it. Yeah, Vicky, what you going to say something? Yeah.
Oh yeah, I was just going to say, and even though we all know we should do things for ourselves and how important it is, you still feel guilty about it, don't you?
Of course.
Yeah.
You can't step away from that. Just moving backwards a little bit then, that kind of application process. Vicky, do you want to tell us a little bit about your work life and what then led up to you in your career and then your sewing to kind of thinking, I should apply for the B, I should do this. What was that all about?
Well, my career, I'm a police dispatcher for Lincolnshire Police. So very, very different career to anything crafty or hobby related. And work didn't have anything to do with it, to be honest. I applied for the sewing bee because I'd had children and I wanted to teach them that they could believe in themselves and do anything. And I don't think that you can really teach anyone anything if you don't try and do it yourself. That's my opinion, not about everything, but about some things. So I really wanted to lead by example to my children. So I decided I need to stop saying, oh, I can't do this, I can't do that, I'm not capable, I'm not confident enough, I'm too anxious, whatever reason it was. And I don't even know why I thought I'd apply for the sewing bee. I think I just thought, why not?
And were you very
much all the things?
Yeah. So how much sewing were you doing at the time? Were you like sewing as a hobby just at the weekends, or like kind of what, or was it a bit more intense as a hobby, or?
Yeah, I've always dabbled since I was younger. And my gran used to have a hand crank singer machine that I used to be fascinated by as a kid. And since then I've dabbled, you do a bit at school, don't you? Or a bit on my, I don't know, bit in my spare time, dabbled in all sorts of crafts just out of interest. And then I got into it properly when I got pregnant with Iris because I wanted to make things for her. And then that's when I got into it more. And then since then, I sew pretty much every day, pretty much.
And so the application was just an extension of that everyday sewing for you then. It was kind of like showing your kids something ambitious about yourself and having a hobby that, Yeah. No, it's great. No, that's fine. I'm just, the motivations for doing these things, I think, is really interesting, right? Like what do you put yourself forward for? And
I don't think I thought I'd ever get on it, is the truth. I think I just thought, I'll show this gesture. It'll be a gesture towards me doing things. And then that'll be it.
Yeah. And then life can continue as normal. Yeah.
I'll just make these gestures that I'm trying to believe in myself. But it was a great experience. I'm so glad I did it. And great for your self-confidence, definitely.
And did you have to just then apply and get approval from your kind of employer then to have the period of time off to go and do the recording? Was that kind of pretty smooth, or?
Because I work for the police, pretty much most things I do have to be authorised because it's the police and, we represent the organisation. So I did have to get it signed off by a couple of departments, and obviously it was a lot of time off work as well, but they were really supportive of it. So they were very, very good.
Yeah, that's good. And everything worked out. Semi-finalist, amazing. So well done you. And Lauren, what about you? What was your kind of career background and then journey into entering the sewing bee?
I haven't been sewing as long as Vicky, so I'm fairly new to sewing. So I've been sewing for just under 4 years. So, and I think I've been garment sewing only 3 of those. So I'm fairly new to sewing. So I didn't study sewing at school or do anything kind of crafty like that at all within my education. And I ended up studying law. I have a law degree, and then went on to go back to do this basically like second part of that law degree in order to become a barrister with a 1-year-old. So I did that, had my daughter, I then finished and I decided to have my son. And from there, I was fortunate enough to essentially take a career break before the career. So that's how I describe it. So I made the decision to step back from law and step back from everything legal because it just didn't work with my dynamic at the time. I had 2 very, very young children, and the area of law I wanted to get into is not a 9 to 5, and it would require a lot more than I could have, given at the time. And I also wanted to prioritize raising my babies, which is a privilege in itself, and I'm very grateful that I had that opportunity. So I was a stay-at-home mum for just over 5 years. So it was at the point where my son was a little bit older and a bit more independent, and my daughter has always been a bit of a mother hen, so she was also independent, and I just wanted to learn something for me. So I decided to as Vicki says, I'm one of those people that has dabbled in crafts before. I've always been that crafty mum. And at playgroups, I was often the one that would be sat with the kids while they're doing the craft because I love it.
Yeah, I'm that kind of person as well.
I really enjoy that part of motherhood. I'm not going to lie. I am that little Pinteresty mum that finds out how to make edible Play-Doh and stuff. But I had a few friends that had bought a lot of homemade items that had been sewn, and I, at the time, thought, oh, that's great. I have a sewing machine that I have never used. So my grandmother gave me a machine when I was 13. I think I was about 13 or 14 as a gift. And I thought, bit of a random gift. I would rather just,
have the money.
Money or vouchers from, I don't know, a fast fashion brand. And I did nothing with this sewing machine for a very long time. I ended up giving it to my mother-in-law for a while. And then I think as my kids got a bit more independent and I had a tiny bit of free time, I decided to get the sewing machine back, and I basically just sat on YouTube and I taught myself how to sew.
Amazing.
So I would just, definitely a top tip for anyone that wants to learn to sew. I would just look up tutorials of things that I wanted to make, and there is probably some content out there that is very beginner friendly. And I just had to go with it. It was trial and error. I was having fun. I think for the first time in many, many years, I was learning a skill and not being examined on it, and that was very liberating. So I had come out of a very intense examination process throughout the whole of my education, and it was really nice to just have something that I didn't need to be judged on. Ironically, I then decided to go on the sewing bee and be judged weekly, but at the time it felt very nice. So I ended up teaching myself how to sew, and by the time lockdown came around, so that was probably, I think it was about mid 2019 I started. By the time it got to early 2020, obviously then we had lockdowns, and if anything, that was a bit of a, I don't know, like a boost of confidence for me, because I could just sew at home. Like there was no, fear.
I should be doing something else, or I should be outside doing
exactly.
this.
I did end up turning into a bit of a Miss Honey and teaching as well, because obviously schools had closed, and I had my daughter leave nursery, and then I had to basically be teacher as well as parent. But
I know.
it was a skill that I was able to teach myself while still focusing on my children. So that was also nice, because I could sew things with them. I could sew things for them. I could do it in the evening when they had gone to bed. I could quickly watch a YouTube tutorial while I'm making their breakfast. Like, it was very accessible as a craft for me. I also managed to, when I started sewing, do it on quite a nice budget as well. It felt quite, I'm going to say cheap. That's probably not the right word now, because...
Didn't feel luxurious.
Exactly. It didn't feel, it felt accessible at the time. I still love charity shopping. So I used to go to charity shops and find, like bed sheets and old fabric, and I was upcycling, and I made
altering stuff.
I think one of the first things I did was make a little costume for my daughter's World Book Day, and I used an old shirt, and so it was very liberating to teach myself a skill. As an adult, I think it's quite nice to, you know, have a hobby. I was watching my children being so busy with all these hobbies, and I think if anything, I was getting a bit jealous. Like, I want a hobby. Why do we stop having hobbies as an adult?
Yeah.
So
That's so
yeah,
true.
it's a very different. There's some. I think there's just some things in life you can never predict. I cannot believe that I have just, you know, been on a sewing program.
And what was the entering of that? Did someone suggest it to you, or did you see it online and just think, why not? Or like, what was your thought process?
So around the same time as getting the machine, and then obviously lockdown shortly after, I ended up watching a series of Sewing Bee. Never watched it before, but I'm a big fan of the Great British Bake Off. And if any of my family have asked, you know, would have asked what one I would have gone on, they would have said Bake Off, because I used to bake a lot more than I do now. But yeah, I was a big baker, and I come from like a family of home bakers. But I watched that, and then I saw that there was a Sewing Bee version, so I started to watch it, and I really enjoyed watching it. I thought, oh, that's really nice. And I loved the rapport that they all had with each other. It didn't look like a competition. They all looked like friends. And I thought, that's so sweet. So the power of Instagram and social media, you can find out like who was on it and start following them. And I started to follow more and more sewing social media accounts and watching more and more videos. And when it came to applying, my husband would hate me telling this story.
He is going to hate you for telling.
Are you going to tell it anyhow? Or is this going to be like, should I, shouldn't I?
She's going to tell it anyway.
I'll say it. The year before I know. Sounds babe. The year before I actually applied, I was very close to applying, and my husband went, are you sure? Because like they're quite good. And I was like, hey. And he was like, you know, I just don't think you're ready. Like
a virtual slap, you know.
Essentially, yeah. He was like, you've only just started sewing. I know you're really getting into it. But the thing is, I go in, when I love something, I go, you know, like all in. And it's very much a passion from the get-go. So he was like, this could just turn into the knitting that you've put aside. Like this may not be what you want to do. Why don't you think about it and wait a year?
Okay.
So at the time I thought, okay, well, he clearly knows me more than I know myself. I hadn't actually sewn that many garments at the time. So in hindsight, you know, he was right. So I applied the following year. So that was for this year.
At least he didn't dampen it completely, right?
No.
He dampened the moment, but not the spirit.
Not the whole spirit. If I carried on sewing for that year, I probably spent a lot of time sewing. And I started to sew like loads of different things, and I discovered like all the patterns that there are online, and you know, more social media accounts. So then I decided to apply the following year, and it was a success, and I got through. And I turned to my husband, and he was like, "See, I told you to wait for the year."
Oh, of course, he turned it back to his success then. Yeah,
of course. So no, although I joke about that story, like he was very supportive throughout the whole thing, and so I just decided to apply on a whim. I didn't tell anybody. The only reason I told my husband was because I forgot his mobile number, and they asked for that as a contact. And I was like, babe, what's your number again? And he was like, why are you asking me that? And I was like, because I'm applying for Sewing Bee. And he was like, that's how you're telling me. So I didn't tell anybody. I think it was a way of just keeping it to myself. My whole sewing process up until that moment was just me, and I didn't want to feel disappointed in myself, and I didn't want to put any pressure on myself, so I just applied and I did it for me. And if I didn't hear back, I was proud of myself for just applying. Like I thought, you know what, that's the first step.
Well, it's a bit like Vicki saying, like, practicing what you preach, right? You know, you might say to kids, go and do it, just have a go at that, or do that. And so why not, right?
Why not?
I think, like you say as well, Lauren, part of the reason I love sewing is the accessibility with having children.
Yeah,
definitely. Because I was the same as you. Like after having kids, you know what it's like. You can't do as much as you used to do, and you've got someone else to consider. I think you've got someone else's logistics to consider. You've got other financial commitments to consider, and you've got your own guilt around spending time on yourself. Whereas I think sewing is something you can do at home. It's something you can do in nap time or when the kids are asleep or in the evenings, and you don't. I don't know. I mean, I love it anyway.
Yeah.
I think the accessibility is something
home-based.
Yeah.
And
there's
useful. What you're making is useful. Yeah.
Oh, definitely.
like you said, you can share it with the kids as well, can't you?
Exactly. And there's equally no pressure to finish something for a certain time or having to get something done. I can't think of another example of a hobby, but just off the top of my head, I can imagine, like, for example, painters, you're limited to, I need to get as much done before the paint dries up. That's probably a very poor analogy.
Well, if you did
Whereas,
running or something,
yeah,
you have to dedicate an hour, don't you?
exactly. Whereas for me, sewing was, there could be some days where I sew for 6 hours straight, and then other days where I've sewn for 6 minutes or I haven't even looked at the machine.
Yeah.
And there's no pressure with that. It's as and when I sew around my dining table. So, my kids could be colouring or doing Lego next to me and I'll be there sewing. So it is I'm still able to be quite present. And that's very important for me. But also another like avenue of this whole sewing and the stage I got into sewing is the fact that as a mother, I did kind of lose myself a little bit.
I agree with you on that as well.
In motherhood, I did lose myself a lot. I was a fairly young mum, so I went from having, like, I don't know, friends that would come around all the time and quite an active, like, social life to being a mummy of two and having to gain new, I don't know, elements of yourself.
Of course.
I moved up here whilst pregnant. I didn't know anybody. We moved to an area that we had no friends in. It was a way of me connecting with not only myself, but with others, because although I was described as my children's mum, I was also Lauren. And it was nice to just step back and still be Lauren. It was nice to, have something for yourself. And as well as that, a whole nother topic that I know that Vicky's very passionate as well about is the fact that we got into sewing as mothers and our bodies changed. Like we birthed two children. Your body is going to change.
Not the same.
No, it was liberating to be within a community where your body was praised. Anybody was praised.
Yeah.
So I am a big lover of fashion. I always have been. And there is still that narrative that certain bodies are more accepted than others. Whereas when you go into the sewing community, oh my goodness, everybody is just celebrated. Like, it's so lovely to know that suddenly you can make clothes that fit your body, not have that awful moment of the jeans that once, you would wear pre-baby are now not fitting post. It was really, really nice to be able to make clothes that were
right for you and and
well,
celebratory.
You're not restricted anymore by the shops, are you?
Exactly.
Yeah. And I think, Vicky, you talked about that on the programme as well, didn't you? Because you had a plus size model, but you also talked about just sewing in general, and you appreciated that as a part of your sewing journey.
I was the opposite of Lauren. I hated fashion and clothes. I was the absolute opposite. I've always been bigger. Like, I've always gained weight really, really easily. So I was the absolute opposite. I absolutely hated clothes. I hated shopping. I hated fashion, predominantly, and it's really sad to say, but predominantly for two reasons. One, because fashion didn't represent me, and two, because I didn't think my body was worthy of the clothes. So I didn't.
Sad, yeah.
It's sad. It's really sad, because I didn't want to waste money or time on things for the body I currently had. And ironically, the first two things I made when I started sewing was I picked a size from the pattern envelope and I made the size that I thought I wanted to be. So they never fit me. They never
made it anyhow.
I made it anyway because I was making stuff ready for when my body was the size I wanted it to be. I thought I wanted it to be.
And how many times did you do that, Vicky? Was that
only twice?
Only twice, okay.
Yeah,
and then did you realise that was not the way forward for you?
I didn't sew for myself for ages after that.
Okay.
I didn't sew for me. I waited and sewed stuff for my daughter while I was pregnant with her. I sewed stuff for her, and then after she was born, I had no clothes that fit me. As you say, Lauren, everybody's body changes. I had nothing. One, I had nothing that fit me. Two, I had nothing that I liked, and I got to the point where I was so sick of it and so fed up and so upset, and I thought, well, I don't want Iris to ever feel this way about herself. So again, a bit in the same situation to the way I applied for the sewing bee. I was like, right, this is enough. I don't want to teach my kids to feel this way about themselves. So let's change it. And I think I listened to a podcast and it said something along the lines of, your body today deserves nice things. So for the body you have today. And my husband, it was like, stop saving your nice stuff for when you've got the body you think you want and whatever. And it was John, my husband, said to me, well, are you going to stop sewing in a year's time? I was like, no. And he said, well, does it really matter if you make something now that doesn't fit you in a year's time? It doesn't, does it? And I was like, no. So
true.
So for me, sewing was part of getting over some of my own body issues. And kids teach you far more about yourself. I think kids teach me more about myself than I probably teach them about anything.
Definitely.
Yeah. And that's the bit you're not told, isn't it? Right? You're told, you've got to help and support them in this journey, and you're like, well, actually, there's stuff they're helping and supporting me. And
honestly, my children are such a blessing and such a drive for me, because I think, oh my gosh, they've just walked up to a stranger in the park and they're playing, and it's now their best friend apparently, and you think, why can't we do that? So there are so many times. Well, we can. Vicki just knocked on my door and became my bestie.
I know, exactly. I was going to say, your story at the beginning was like, should we have a cuppa?
Yeah, let's just have a cup of tea.
Like, has your sewing changed from being in the competition? And obviously you finished a lot, like, I don't know how many months ago you officially finished compared to what we saw on screen. But, has it evolved for you? Like, do you feel you're doing more sewing that's now slightly more professionalized or more social media savvy, or has it changed?
I personally don't think my sewing has changed that much. I think one thing I've probably gained is a bit more confidence in my sewing.
Okay.
So I'm more confident in my skills, because although, yes, I did make it onto Sewing Bee, there was still a lot of self-doubt, and I was still fairly new to sewing, and there are a lot of things that I probably thought, oh my gosh, I have no idea how to do this. Like, could I do it? And I have. So I think it's definitely given me more confidence moving forward with my sewing. I think it's also given me more confidence within my style as well.
Okay.
So I think everyone has quite a unique style. There are definitely 12 of us with
completely
different styles. I was worried, especially I remember that first episode, I was very, very worried about the fact it was pointed out I was the only one to have a plain fabric and everyone else had printed. And I thought, oh no.
This is the way it's going to be.
And then, by the end of it, I thought, actually, no, this is me.
You know what you like.
I know what I really do know what I like. I know what I like to create. I know what or where I get my inspiration from, and again, everyone gets that inspiration from different things or different kind of sources. So it's definitely changed my sewing practice for the better.
Okay.
I'm still sewing. If I'm not sewing, I'm thinking about sewing, and I think it's definitely like
it's in your mind
every day, every single day. And it's just squeezing it in.
And what about you, Vicki? Is it changed for you, like your sewing?
It's strange, isn't it? Because I think people watch it in their time and they see us as whatever we're doing on social media now, but the reality is that we've had 8 months to change in that time. So I think people forget that what we made on the show at that moment, we're now 8 months ahead of ourselves. But
although cargo pants are still in fashion, Vicki, so
they are. But I definitely think, like you said, Lauren, I'm more confident. I think I'm more confident to try things. I think even going through the application process before that, I'd be more, no, I don't know how to sew with that fabric, so I'm not going to. Or that'll be difficult, so I'm not going to do that. Especially combining sewing patterns, I was very, well, this is the pattern, so that's what I'm going to make. Whereas now I'm a bit more like, well, you know, you can
Let's
just
have
make
fun.
stuff up.
Have a go. Yeah.
So I definitely think more confident. And I think as well, I felt really inspired afterwards. I mean, I had a little break from sewing after filming because it was so intense. And I think most of us probably did. But I definitely felt more inspired coming back, though. I think seeing I mean, I'm from a small city. I'm from a little area. I'm not saying there's not a mixture of styles here, but I think I'm in my house a lot of the time or at work in uniform. So I really loved seeing everyone else's style while we were filming. I really liked seeing other people made.
And hearing everyone else's stories as well. I think sewing is such a lovely way to connect to so many things. And it was lovely to hear people's stories and the reason they, you know, I don't know,
styled something.
And what they like.
And the similarities that we would have and how they could all be so different. So they could be the same pattern. And if you give it to each of us,
it was 12 different times.
I know, it's great to watch that way.
Yeah.
I think as well, it really was 12 different people.
Yeah,
it really was 12 different people.
We all have maybe something that connects us to an extent, but it really was 12 lovely, unique styles that could all just, you know, I think by the end of it, we could probably pass each other the fabric that we were going to pick. Like, it was, oh, Lauren, this is definitely you.
I know what you're going to do next.
Take this one. This is what you're running for. It's fine. You have it.
I've sewn more plain since meeting you, Lauren.
Oh. I wish I could say I've sewn more.
Maybe I've.
You are wearing a print now, Lauren. It's a subtle print, but it's there.
There are exceptions to my pattern rules.
You did that Lady McElroy fabric the other day, which was very vibrant.
That was a very vibrant skirt. Haven't worn it since though, have I?
With a plain top though, Lauren. Did you still keep your
You know me so well already, Laura. When I picked the fabric, we were actually all together when we picked that fabric. And the other bees were like, you should get it. And I was like, oh my gosh, you're right. I'm going to pair it with everything else plain. And I could see them being like, yeah, of course, that's what you're going to do. One statement print and then the rest very plain.
But I think it's... Oh, sorry, Vicki.
Oh, sorry, I was going to say, my style is I go to the children's play park and random kids say to me, I like your dress. It's got whales on it.
They've got good taste then, Vicki. You know.
I remember one of the first things Vicki said was, I dress like toddler chic. And I was like,
toddler chic. I've never heard that phrase.
I am not denying it. You're absolutely right.
But you're rocking your toddler chic.
It looks great.
But it's so interesting though, because like when you're younger, like people with completely different sort of styles, you probably don't bond quite as easily because you kind of see it through a very defined lens. Whereas look at you two, right? You're being like, you know, we similar backgrounds and interests in terms of the kids and your tea drinking, but you know, completely different styles and approaches.
And ironically, I think another one of my very good friends who also sews and is one of my closest mum friends, we ended up having babies 3 days apart. So we were very, very close. And ironically, when I told Vicki who that friend is, hello Holly, Vicki and Holly have basically identical styles. And so I've now realised, although I don't wear the colour...
Friendship type.
And the clashing prints, my friendship type is very much the opposite. So I think it's because I like to dabble in it without dabbling in it. So I get to see what Vicki's making. That's enough for me.
You get the influx.
I look at Vicki and I'm like, wow, that's so cool.
Other really close friend who's got kids the same age as me likes plains and neutrals. So her and Lauren are very similar.
We're potentially going to swap besties because the four of us are just going to really work. We've never all met together. We shall make it happen.
I was going to say, don't swap, just double friendship we just need to double up. This is it. Yeah. Oh.
But no, I think you're right. I do love the fact that it's so lovely that I really love and appreciate everyone's fashion sense and their different style at the same time as still embracing what I like. It's very nice.
Exactly. Yeah. Well, it's been a great series to watch, ladies. And then as well as the kind of the sewing life is pretty much normal life resumed. Are you still police dispatching, Vicki and Lauren? Have you gone back to do legal work or where you're at with that? So Vicki,
Yeah, I'm back to dispatching.
Fab. You can't change your outfit, I assume. You have to wear what you've got to wear.
It's
for the
a uniform, but to be
Yeah.
honest, that's fine by me.
Yeah, brilliant. And Lauren, where are you at with legal career?
So my legal career is very much on the back burner at the minute, which
Okay.
for me and the family still works out quite well.
Yeah.
And I have decided, or I haven't decided, I ended up changing jobs recently as well. So I
Okay.
worked part-time before and now I've gone back to full-time work.
Okay.
So I'm working full-time at the minute. So it's definitely a new dynamic for us, and juggling a 9 to 5, squeezing in a few hours for sewing, extracurricular activities for the children every single evening.
Yeah.
But no, it's really nice working that 9 to 5. It does have its perks. I now have my weekends with the children, which is brilliant. And yeah, as we've mentioned already, my children are very active in my everyday, so they don't
Just
mind.
combine it all.
Yeah, they don't mind mummy sewing for an hour, especially.
Yeah.
I nickname my youngest Velcro because he is my Velcro
good
kid.
nickname.
Yeah. So
That's good.
so normally if I'm sewing, Velcro's near me. So he's normally with me sewing as well. Or helping mummy
I love it.
pick pins up off the floor. Like that's their favorite game.
Yeah, my kids like that too.
It's really exciting. I ended up starting this job whilst airing was happening, so it was a lot of changes happening in a very small space of time. But it's just working out so much better for me and the family.
Good.
Yeah, they're
and
always,
when it,
I was going to say they're always the priority, so it's brilliant.
Oh
Yeah.
No. Well, they have to be, right?
Yeah.
I mean, and then your second priority. When are you going to see Vicki?
Oh,
when are you guys meeting up next? Have you got plans?
Soon.
We
got
have
plans at the minute.
Yeah, we don't have
we?
any plans actually. We did that very stalkerish thing of Googling the halfway point between our homes. And
Which is Leicester.
It's
which
Leicester.
Is nice.
It's not far.
Yeah.
Okay, good.
It's not far.
So it's about an hour's drive, just over an hour for each of us. So we've met like for brunch a couple of times,
A
which
few
has been lovely.
times. But dynamics are a bit different now, aren't they? With work and school holidays and stuff. So it'll resume. We still need to meet each other's kids.
Oh yeah, the kids. What's really weird is that the kids have met each other
online,
essentially.
Yeah.
So my kids will hear me talking to Vicki on the phone, and then they're like, "Is Iris there?" And I'm like, "Yeah, she's there."
My kids call you the woman on the sewing machine, which I find quite funny. Mummy's friend on the sewing machine, because Ezzy, my youngest, found a picture of me and Lauren in some photos I had printed, and he stuck it on my sewing machine because he says Lauren's my sewing friend. So
that is so sweet.
Stuck it on my sewing machine for me.
I don't want to ruin the illusion, but my kids are also of the belief that if they call 999, Vicki picks up the phone.
Amazing.
I don't want to ruin the illusion. I also don't want them to call 999 thinking that they could speak to
Vicki will pick it up.
Yeah. So one day I'll have to break their little hearts, but at the minute, that's their belief that she's just on the phone.
I love it. The joy of these kids, right?
Yeah.
I mean, this is great.
Yeah.
And ladies, I've loved hearing more about your lives and what you're up to. So it's been fantastic.
Oh, thank you so much for having us.
No, it's great. And I mean, I know I'm connected on the old Instagram, but how can people find you if they aren't yet? Vicki, you go first.
So my Instagram is what Vicki made. It's VICKI.
Great. And for you, Lauren, what's yours?
And mine is made by Lauren Tedstone. Okay. And we're both enjoying social media and very active on there. So if you'd like to see what we're up to post B, then we're definitely always updating our Instagram, and that gives a really lovely snapshot of what we're up to.
For me, I really love Instagram because, again, with the whole accessibility thing and having kids, it's sort of an online world is accessible, isn't it? Because I can message someone at 3 a.m. if that's the time I've got, or I can message someone, while I'm making dinner or whatever. So I think for me, that's when I fell in love with Instagram.
There's a lot of resources and there's a lot of friendship. I mean, there's a lovely brand that I have met recently who make personalized mannequins.
Okay.
And I've worked with them for a little bit, and they were explaining to me that for a lot of mothers, one of your shoulders is lower than the other. And that is from carrying your children.
Oh, right.
Same with your hip as well.
Yeah, your hip is also
have a dropped hip.
Oh my goodness. Everything's just out of sorts as well, isn't it? You carry the kids, you carry all their stuff, you carry their burdens.
Yeah, you carry the water bottle, you carry it all. Yeah, their burdens, their stress, their worries, it's all on our
My
shoulders.
own burdens are enough.
Yeah. But
I'm stressing out now.
It's a really lovely and liberating conversation to have, knowing that isn't something that will be stigmatized. Like, it's not, oh no, you can no longer buy a dress because your shoulder tilts a little bit. It's more like, right, if
everyone's wonky.
Let's make that change. So many fit issues when it comes to, trousers and jeans and all of that. It's so liberating to know, actually, it's not the jeans that are the issue in the high street. It's just the fact that I need a bit of an adjustment, and I can do that now. I can make that, and I'll make things work for my body. So
amazing.
Very, very body positive.
Yay! Hooray to that.
Yeah.
Oh, well, thank you so much, ladies. I think it's super inspirational what you did for the bee and then what you're doing now. And I just really love your friendship as well. It's just really warming to see it. So all the best to you and your family. And I will keep following you on Instagram, and hopefully listeners to Mother of All Solutions will do the same. So thank you to my listeners for today. If you want to keep in touch with me, your host, Laura Broderick, I'm on Instagram and Twitter X as @SolutionsMother. So please do connect with me as well. And if you want to subscribe to the podcast, just your usual podcast platforms, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, all the usual places. And yeah, do listen back to past episodes and subscribe for future ones. And if you've liked today, it would be amazing if you could tell your friends, share on your socials, and generally just, share the love. So thank you everyone for listening, and thank you once again to Vicki and to Lauren. Stay well, everyone, and good luck with the back to school. Take care. Bye.
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 Bye.